I just want to point out here, since you've been around the world, you've taken a look archaeologically at history, you've also seen up close these indigenous peoples, people that have lived, the way we lived and understanding history. Were these people suffering? Like, do they have awful lives out in the sticks? Now, since we farmed over all the best places, they're in the worst places in the world, least viable for us to, farm over and shove Bibles down their throats. Like, are humans designed just to get by?
No, I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many times somebody asks me about working with these people, and our vision is, oh, they're hunter-gatherers, oh, they're nomadic pastoralists, whatever they're doing, they're living in these amazing environments and then just crushing it. At some level, they're still crushing it in many ways, but they're living in these marginal environments. All the best land in this world are covered in been taken up by the modern industrial world. I mean, the cities are in places where ancient civilizations were, which were put in places where ancient hunter-gatherers were, because they were the best places to be. So the people that I'm working with are in many ways living lives that are very similar to the way they've been living for a very, very long time. But in most cases, they're doing it in places where they wouldn't have chose to be. They've been pushed there in very marginal environments. And I will tell you, there's a couple of standards for all the people that my family and I have been with, and all the work we've done with them. Number one, it's the diversity is the standard, right? Everybody does something a little bit different, right? But as far as the things that really are the same, true, just soul warming happiness is, what it truly means to be human is what we get from these people. My family has been taken into some of these places which, it's almost impossible to even get to, and they've been welcomed into the homes there, and homes of people that are living in a 1-bedroom house, and give us, I've been around people who don't have access to all the materials that they wish they could, usually for economic reasons, that literally have the opportunity to eat meat once a week, that saved it for when me and my family came to share it with us. I mean, that's the kind of level, and never have we felt unsafe. Never. It's just this love and camaraderie and humanness that is just oozing. I mean, I don't even know. I just, when I think of the experiences, it's always, the flashes in my head of the memories are always about hugging and smiling and laughing and sharing incredible food and stories. And that's what it's been, and that's what I hope it continues to be. But yeah, that's exactly what it was.
That's amazing. You mentioned Dr. Anthony Chafee, and listening to your episode that you did on his podcast, described being in Mongolia and the couple that you were with and making a rope, like the strength, the dexterity, the knowledge, the wisdom. Like it's so interesting to live in this modern world and try to incorporate some of those things. And a lot of that is food. A lot of that is our nutrition. And when I steal your line and tell it to somebody, when I tell it to one of my clients, that we are not really designed to eat most, if any, of the food that we actually consume, that really blows people's minds. And people are like, whoa, what are you talking about? And you start to describe, like if I divide this into plant foods and animal foods, you're not really designed to do either one. You're designed to use technologies to make them safe for you to consume. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So first off, for everybody that hasn't listened to any of the earlier podcasts, as far as technology is concerned, technology is required. Some technological input is required for almost every single food that we eat at some level. And we've been inserting technology, creating technologies to transform raw materials in our diets for at least 3.3 million years. 3.3 to 3.4 is the earliest we have evidence for right now. And at that time, they were very simple stone tools that were created and used. But don't be fooled by the simplicity of the tool. It is a powerful tool. The ability to create a razor sharp, durable edge, something that's sharper and more durable than anything we have on our body, immediately transformed our relationship with everything around us. We could now butcher and scrape and cut and saw and do all those things that we didn't have the ability to do before. Now, for most of us that that doesn't maybe mean a whole lot. But imagine if I ripped away all of your scissors, all of your knives, all of your razor blades, all of your razors, anything that we use to cut anything, and said, do something. You couldn't do anything. Like you literally couldn't do anything. And we live in a world where most of the things are already cut for us. So transformative technologies like stone tools, fermentation, fire, hunting, nishtamalization, and the ability to create pottery and put it on top of a fire, all those sorts of things transformed our relationship with the environment and our relationship with food. If the other example that I usually give is, okay, imagine if I stripped you down completely naked and threw you in the middle of the woods wherever you live. For most people listening, especially this time of the year, I know you and I were chatting real quick before we got on this. You have 50 inches of snow this year where you live.
Almost
It's
500 in the mountains.
What's almost okay? 100
Almost
in the
500 in the mountains.
I'm here on the eastern shore of Maryland. We've seen a few flurries, but it's freezing cold. I was sitting in a goose blind all day this morning, and it was freezing, and I had like 7 layers of clothes on. It is very humbling immediately, because most of us would die from exposure, right, if that was the case. So number one, that tells us that we require technologies to live in most of the places. This isn't equatorial Africa, right? This is other parts of the world. So we need technologies to even make it because of exposure. But even if it was the middle of the summer wherever you live, and it was nice, and I say, okay, now go eat. Okay, great. There's wild plants, and maybe I can get a rat or something like that. But the reality is, any one of us, and I don't care how great your survival skills are, I don't care if you could identify every plant in front of you and you knew the behavior patterns of every animal that was in the woods with you, the reality is you would die of starvation. The human body, over millions of years of evolutionary changes that were supported by technological innovations that transformed our diets, we created bodies that require nutrition that we just can't get on our own. Not with our fingernails, our eyes, our muscles, our speed or lack of speed. We just can't access the materials. And even if we could access all the raw materials with any technology, which we can't, but even if we could, our digestive tracts are incredibly weak. We haven't had to rely solely on our digestive tracts to transform a raw material into nutrition for our bodies for over 3 million years. So we require these technological inputs. Many of us don't think about it that way, but if you just think about the technologies you use today, from the moment you got up to the moment you're listening to this podcast, I mean, how many technologies did you use? From a knife to a Vitamix, to a stove, to a microwave, to the coffee machine. I mean, all of these things are technological inputs. And this is where, when I mentioned earlier, this is the how. How do we as humans take a raw material and transform it into its safest and most nourishing form possible for our body? So real quick, let me just say something about the safe and the nourishing part, because I keep saying that over and over again. The nourishing part, there's 2 parts to that. One is nutrient density. So we humans have these incredibly large bodies and these incredibly large nutrient needy brains that require massive nutrition. And I don't just mean in the form of calories, the right kinds of proteins, the right kinds of fats, macronutrients, micronutrients, all the things that we need it, and we need a lot of it, which means we get a lot of return when the foods we eat are incredibly nutrient dense. But just as importantly, especially for us with these incredibly inefficient digestive tracts, we need those nutrients to be bioavailable to our bodies or accessible to our bodies. Just because we eat it doesn't mean our bodies get the nutrition in the right way to go to where it needs. In fact, for most of us in the modern world, for a lot of different reasons, whether it's because we have irritable bowel syndrome or because we're eating food that hasn't been processed properly, the reality is, even those of us who put a lot of nutrition into our mouths, a large majority of it goes right out the other end and doesn't get to where it needs to be. So that's the bioavailability part. It needs to be in the right state for our bodies to access it properly. But the other piece of that, the safety piece, seems weird. Like, I keep talking about safety, keep saying the safety. Does he mean like, the milk has to be pasteurized so it doesn't kill us? No. What I mean is, especially in the plant world, and again, Anthony Chafee is the one who's kind of spearheading a lot of this right now, and I guess a lot of people are, but the idea, they say plants are trying to kill you. I tone that down just a hair because plants don't really care about us at all. But the reality is plants are not on this earth to feed us. Plants are here to do the same thing that every other living organism on this planet is trying to do: reproduce, survive, reproduce viable offspring, and that offspring survives and reproduces viable offspring so the species can continue. And the way the plants do it is through chemical warfare and biological warfare, creating all sorts of different toxins that are present in literally every single plant that we have. So the crazy thing is, and it sounds like you've heard me say this before, we've created and used technologies in our dietary past for including animals and plants in our diets. And there's a big difference between what those technologies were used for. As far as, and sorry about that sound, we have a new hydroponic machine we got a grant for that's growing something in the background, so the water turned on if anybody's hearing it. So number one, as far as animals are concerned, most of the technologies developed to help include animals in our diet were about overcoming our physical limitations and getting the animal, because it's very difficult for us to, jump on animals and rip them apart. So it's for hunting technology, things like bows and spears and atlatls and boomerangs, or fishing technologies, such as nets or hooks or traps. All those things were created to help us overcome our limitations and access these animals. Once we have that animal food sources represent the most nutrient-dense, bioavailable nutrition humans have ever had access to. So all you need is a sharp edge. Once you have the animal, a sharp edge to get into that animal. The blood, the fat, the organs, the most nutrient-dense, bioavailable parts of those animals, the nutrition in those parts are readily accessible. We can just dive right in. They're already safe. In almost every case, there's nothing we have to detoxify about those foods. Heck, we don't even have to cook them. In fact, cooking sometimes with some of those foods, like the organ meat, sometimes a little bit can degrade some of the bioavailability of the nutrients. The meat cooking there's a little bit of research that suggests it's a little bit easier for the human body to access all of the nutrients in raw red meat by physically processing it a little bit, by chopping it up, and then a little bit of cooking can help a little bit. But again, we're talking about minutia here because it's so incredibly nutrient dense. All that food's there, it's safe and nutrient dense. Plants are a completely different thing. Up until the agricultural revolution, which started about 12,000 years ago, depending on where you are in the world, that everything changes then. So pre-agricultural use of plants in our diets, the technologies, almost every single technology created to include plants in our diets, didn't have to do with getting the plants. Heck, plants are super easy. Okay, you need a digging stick to dig up some roots. Maybe it helps if you have a basket to collect berries. But for the most part, you're talking about collective foraging, just grabbing and pulling things, right? Getting the foods don't require a lot of technological input. What requires technological input is making those plant foods safe and unlocking the nutrients so our inefficient digestive tract can do something with the nutrition that's there. Every single plant on this planet has some level of toxin in them. That doesn't mean all of those toxins are going to kill you. That doesn't even mean that all of those toxins are going to really harm you in a way you're going to recognize. All of them have toxins. Some of them will kill you. Some of them will make you sick. Some of them will build up over time. The really dangerous ones are the ones that are going to build up over time, and you're going to feel the effects years or decades down the line. But detoxifying plants is a strategy that our ancestors developed over millions of years, and making those nutrients in the cells of the plants available to our bodies is another very important use of technology.